Hi there, friend. Welcome to Mindful Chatting. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about private practice is that success comes from your motivation. That if you're passionate enough, driven enough, and organized enough, you'll stay consistent. But private practice will eventually teach you something very quickly, and that is motivation fluctuates. There will be weeks where you will feel inspired, productive, clear, and excited about your growth. And then there will be weeks where you feel exhausted, behind, disconnected, and burnt out, or honestly, just mentally overloaded. And if your business only functions when you feel highly motivated, your business will constantly feel unstable. So, today we're going to talk about why consistency within the private practice is not about discipline, and why systems matter more than your motivation, and how to build a practice that can still function on your low capacity weeks. Let's get into this, but we're going to do it together. Welcome to Mindful Chatting, a podcast where therapy meets real life. I'm Kristen, a therapist, business owner, and a lifelong student of what it means to fully show up in our relationships, in our work, and in our healing. Here, we unpack mental health concepts, explore mindfulness tools, and talk through the messy, beautiful, in-between moments that shape us. Whether you're a fellow clinician, a curious listener, or someone navigating your own growth, this space is for you. Let's chat. I think a lot of clinicians unknowingly build their practice around bursts of motivation. You redesign your website at midnight, or create 6 new ideas, or overhaul systems, plan massive goals for yourself, and in the moment, it feels really, really productive. But consistency in private practice is not built through intensity, it's built through sustainability, because private practice requires long term decision making, repeated systems, emotional consistency, and operational structure, not just motivational spikes. And this is especially true for therapists because we're also balancing our emotional labor as we do private practice, our documentation, just the business as an owner, marketing, scheduling, finances, oh yeah, and our personal life. And many clinicians are mentally exhausted before they even touch the business side of things. So, when energy drops, the first thing to disappear is often our content creation, our administration organization, our financial tracking, our marketing, and definitely appropriate planning. And then people think I'm just bad at business when really they're operating without fully sustainable systems within their practice. Here's a quick note for my clinicians listening. If you're looking for a charting and practice management system that doesn't make you want to scream, well, guess what? I use TherapyNotes. It's clean, reliable, HIPAA compliant, and honestly saves me hours every week. You can try it with my link in the show notes. If your practice only moves forward when you feel inspired, well, then growth becomes inconsistent because motivation changes based on your stress levels, your burnout, your sleep, how much clients you have that week, your emotional capacity to deal with these things, and really just life circumstances that happen. And private practice cannot rely solely on emotional momentum. It needs operational support. And this is things where this is going to shift for you when you start thinking about systems. Systems are not about rigidity. They're about reducing the amount your brain has to hold manually for itself. So, for example, recurring administration days are going to be super helpful when it comes to systems. Creating a lot of templates, scheduled content as you make it, automated reminders for you and your clients, maybe creating some workflows and some financial tracking systems for you. The less your brain has to constantly recreate the wheel, the easier consistency becomes for you because it's going to become automatic. And this is the part where nobody talks about. Your business should not only function during your best weeks, it should also survive your burnout weeks, your emotional exhaustion, your family stress, even illness and some overload, because those weeks will happen and sustainable practices account for that reality. For any clinicians tuning in, if insurance billing is the part of your practice that drains your soul, Headway will be your best friend. They get you credentialed, send you referrals, manage your billing, submit your claims, all the stuff none of us went to grad school for. It's free to join, and honestly, it's been a huge support for therapists who want to take insurance without drowning in the administration part. My link is in the show notes if you want to check it out. I think this is one of the most helpful mind shifts that I have had. Instead of asking what's my ideal version of what my practice or my week is going to be, I want you to start asking yourself, what's the minimum version I can sustain consistently? So an example could be content, maybe not 5 posts, but maybe 1 right now. Or when it comes to administration, it might not be full organization overhaul. It maybe just might be processing some urgent tasks. Or maybe for marketing, it may not be launching a whole new funnel system, but maybe responding consistently to inquiries. The goal becomes maintaining movement, not perfection. When everything lives in your head, private practice becomes emotionally heavy very quickly. So, our systems need to create structure, predictability, reduce your decision fatigue, and recovery space for you. And that protects your capacity long term. So, let's get into practical systems to help build what private practice should look like. And these are just examples that maybe I have used in the past or still continue to use in order to sustain my private practice. So, one is theme days. We need to separate when our client work is, what our administration work is, our finances, and maybe when we generate content. So, I know this isn't always going to work out, but remember, you're in private practice now. You maintain your schedule. So, there are going to be some days where you're going to have some client work. And then maybe there's going to be some days where instead of just coming into the office and being bombarded with emails, I want you to plan when you're doing your content. I want you to think about putting yourself in that mindset and only thinking about that theme. That helps with decision fatigue, it helps with shifting, and it also helps you manage what is my goals? What are my motivations? What am I supposed to be doing that day? Second, I want you to think about templates because templates reduce repeated mental effort. Now, these are the things where you don't have to make them absolutely perfect in order to use them. You need to make something. And then as time goes on and as stuff pops up in your practice or things that you forgot, you can always add them into the templates. And you can always have clients sign the updated version. It's okay to start off with a skeleton and build to what you're looking for. And remember, sometimes life circumstances and things, you don't always know what's going to happen. But if you create templates about what the bare minimum should be, you can always add extra things as different clients and different situations pop up. And I want you to think about what templates are you going to need consistently. Intake forms, out of pocket, are you taking cash pay? Well, then you need a faith-based estimate of your cash that you're collecting. You may need release of information. So just do the bare minimum of the skeleton of the forms. And trust me, as time goes on, you'll build more and more templates for yourself that make it easier when situations pop up. Next, I want you to think about weekly CEO check-ins. And guess what? You're a CEO of your private practice. So that means you need to review your schedule often. You need to review your finances often. You need to review what the priorities of the practice are, and you need to review how much capacity it's going to take you because you're one person right now. Eventually, hopefully, you'll be able to hire out these things if that's the goal of your private practice. But right now, you're the CEO, you're also the financial advisor, you're also the clinician, and you're also the business owner. But you need to plan time for all of these roles. And I think that was one of the biggest mindset shifts for me when I was in private practice is like, oh, I just realized that nobody else is doing this but me. So that means a CEO is going to need a regular scheduled time. So that's where the theme days come in. So maybe on Mondays, I'm a CEO, and then maybe on Fridays, I'm the CFO. But you need to schedule time for these things and block out the time, or time will just run away with you and you won't know what hit you.
If you want to understand your ADHD in a deeper way, I've created the ADHD Crash Course, and it walks you through ADHD step by step so that you can actually start understanding your brain and not shaming it. Everything's in small, doable lessons designed for your ADHD in mind. The link is in the show notes.
The next thing I want you to think about is creating a low capacity plan. So I want you to ask yourself, what still gets maintained when I'm overwhelmed? So there are going to be some weeks where maybe I may come into the office and I'm just in a low energy day. I always think about what is the bare minimum that needs to happen on a CEO day, on a CFO day, a client load day, or an admin day. And then if I'm here on low energy, those are my bare minimums. Those are going to be what I call the non negotiables. Those are the things that are going to get done whether or not I have the energy for them or not. And if I have more energy, that's great. But if I don't, at least I know that my non negotiables for each of those roles are being addressed for how often I want to address them. The next, I want you to build a recovery into your schedule. I know that sounds crazy. This is not just about productivity. We have to think about recovery. So that means you might actually have to plan a lunch. And I'll be honest with you, when I started my private practice, I didn't plan lunches. I let my schedule determine my lunch. I don't know what I was thinking, but I planned my lunch out. And then I also planned maybe buffer times, or maybe you want to think about emergency appointment slots. I don't think enough private practice people do this. So I have one emergency slot in my schedule and I never fill it unless I absolutely have to. Because there are going to be some weeks where you're completely jammed packed. Great, that's going to feel exciting because that's great money for you, right? But then you're always going to get a message from a client who's going through a crisis. And guess what? You're going to want to see them. And that means you might have to work overtime. I did that for years. You don't have to. You can schedule an emergency slot appointment and you do not fill it unless it needs to be filled. So that means on some days you're probably going to go home early because you don't have a crisis client. But guess what? On the weeks that you do, you're going to be happy that you get off on the time that you're supposed to and not overworking. If you're overworking past your normal hours, that is where animosity and resentment builds in, and you do not want that infiltrating your practice. I think a lot of clinicians assume they're inconsistent when really they're trying to run a business entirely through mental effort and motivation. And eventually that just becomes exhausting and not sustainable for you as a practice owner. And this is exactly why I teach these layered planning systems and operational structures for people with ADHD and overwhelmed brains. Because private practice becomes much more sustainable when your systems can hold things for you. I'll link some of these resources in the show notes if you want to start building that foundation for yourself. Remember, consistency in private practice is not about becoming more disciplined. It's about building systems that still support your business, even when your motivation disappears. Because guess what? It will. And because sustainable businesses are not built from constant intensity, they're built from repeatable structure. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you're gentle with your mind.
One more thing before you go, and this helps me personally, staying present and grounded, which we all need, especially when your brain wants to spiral into disconnection. Me too. It's Brain FM. It's musically designed to help ADHD brains, well, really anyone's brain, focus, relax, or sleep, and I use it almost daily. If you want to try it, I've dropped my link in the show notes. And if you're looking for planning tools or ADHD-friendly resources, I'll keep a list of my favorite links in every episode.